I'm here with Congressman Joseph Kennedy. Thank you so much, Congressman Kennedy, for this interview, and it's an honor to meet you.
Shayna, I'm thrilled. Thank you very much for making the time for me.
Thank you. What is your proudest moment?
My proudest moment, I would have to say, was actually getting married to my wife. I hope that's not too cheesy, but we've been dating for a long time. We met in law school, and certainly one of the biggest moments of my life so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was maybe it also the American Revitalizing Act?
Yes, so one of the first big laws I actually got passed in Congress, so it was pretty cool to actually see that happen as well.
Yes.
So definitely a major professional goal when that law got passed, and to know that sometimes you actually in Congress can get laws passed that you think are going to help people. Personally, probably a toss-up again between getting married, and we actually had our first child just about 7 weeks ago, so becoming a dad is a pretty proud moment too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you should pass a law to make the White House pink.
I'll work on that one.
Yes.
It's a good idea.
Thank you. Can you tell me more about STEM education?
Yeah, so STEM education is about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and my undergraduate degree was actually in form of engineering, and as you go out and look at our economy today and the jobs that are being created today, certainly a big piece to it is having at least some ability in those fields. Again, mathematics and science and technology. They're also the jobs that are growing most quickly in our economy today. So I look at it as an important thing in order to be able to access our job market today, and something that's going to be increasingly important off in the future when you're ready to graduate from school and go out there into the workforce. We also have to make sure, though, that those opportunities are out there for everybody. So many of those STEM jobs and STEM careers end up going to men and end up going are out of reach for many minorities because of the way that our investments work. So we've actually offered some legislation in Washington, D.C. trying to make sure that women, minorities, and lower income communities also have access to the resources that they need in order to ignite a passion in that area as well.
Yes. It sounds very interesting.
Well, I think so. It's not quite as interesting as a good interview or journalism, but I think it's interesting for me anyway.
Yes. What are 3 things you can't live without?
3 things I can't live without. I don't know if I would want to live without, and I certainly don't think anybody would want to live with me if I didn't have a big cup of coffee in the morning.
Yes.
I'm a fan of coffee, and I'm a lot happier when I have one. So our team here is certainly, I think, would probably agree with me as well, that I'm a better person if I had coffee in the morning. 2 would probably be my family. We've got not just my wife and little daughter now, but I've got a twin brother that I'm very close with, and we've got a really big family between all my aunts and uncles and cousins, and been one of the privileges that and the many blessings that I've had is just being able to grow up with them and run around with them and have a lot of fun with them. 3rd thing, one thing that I love to do, Shayna, and probably don't get to do all that often, but I think it gets better when you do, is something that will make you laugh.
Yes.
Days can be tough, either in this job or others, and if you're either around somebody or something that at least brings a smile to your face and hopefully lets you laugh a little bit, I think makes things an awful lot better.
I agree with you.
Oh, good, thank you.
Maybe not on the coffee, because I never tried it.
On the coffee, yeah, I put it off as long as you can.
Yes.
But I drink a lot of coffee.
Yes. Can you tell me more about the Revitalize American Manufacturing Act?
Yeah, so the Revitalize American Manufacturing and Innovation Act was the first big law that I got passed through Congress, and did it with the help of a great Republican partner. So you got to get, in order to get that law passed, we have to get it through the House of Representatives. That's dominated by the Republican Party. I'm a Democrat, so the opposite party, and then through the Senate, and then signed into law by the President. And the idea basically was trying to spark the next level of innovation around America's manufacturing industry. So there's some challenges out there that exist in an increasingly competitive environment, and the idea essentially is that the government would come in and provide some additional startup funding, and then working with educational institutions like colleges or community colleges or universities, entrepreneurs and incubators and think tanks and policymakers put together a idea that tackles one of those big challenges, and then between all of those pieces, you get students at those universities that could get trained on the next, the most cutting-edge equipment and actually learn the techniques to create the next big thing, and then after they graduate, go right into one of the companies that might be incubated in that same space. So it was great for students so that they get the skills that they need in order to enter the workforce. It's great for the educational institutions because they know that they're actually teaching their students what they need in order to get a job. And it's great for our companies because they know that they can get access to the technologies they need. They can innovate a little bit better. They can don't have to bear as much risk if they want to try something new. And they get access to a really talented workforce. So we've seen a number of these pilot programs come up around the country. One of the first ones was actually on 3D printing, and it was done with the Defense Department, and it's been hugely successful at Youngstown, Ohio. So we've got the concept that's proved right. We've got a number of other now of these centers in the pipeline, and it's been going really well. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting program.
Yeah, it's I think for a country that for a long time was known for and proud of the fact that we made really good things here, and we can make great quality products with our hands. Our economy has shifted a bit so that making the most of something has now shifted to other parts of the world, but we can still make the best of something, and people are willing to pay for quality, but we want to make sure that you're actually making the highest quality product, and that's something that if I had to bet on anybody, I'd bet on the United States, I'd bet on our workers for that. So that's the idea behind all of this, is making sure that we still make an investment in ourselves and in our future.
Yeah, and do you think it's more or less hard to get it passed by the president?
It was the president gave us some great support on it. It was one of his ideas as well. It was something that he had pushed. The hard part wasn't trying to get it passed by the president and by the White House. The hard part was trying to convince some of our other colleagues, Republican colleagues, that this was something that was going to be a worthwhile investment. And I give a lot of credit to our Republican co-sponsor, Tom Reed, who's from New York. That he did an awful lot of help, or an awful lot of work convincing some of his Republican colleagues and Republican leadership in the House of Representatives that this was a good idea. So he was a great partner and deserves a lot of credit.
I think it was a very good idea.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
I understand you were in the Peace Corps.
I was.
Can you tell me what that was like?
Yeah, I was in the Peace Corps for about 2.5 years, from 2004 till about the early summer or so of late spring of 2006 in the Dominican Republic. So it's about a 27-month commitment, and the first couple of months is a training course where you go into the country, Dominican Republic for me, and you learn about the language, you learn about the culture, you learn about some of the skills that you need in order to do your job. And then you get dropped off in a site, you get to work with the community there, and they give you some ideas to what you're going to do, and then for the next 2 years you kind of figure it out. And I loved it. I had an incredibly powerful and meaningful experience. I still keep in touch with the local community that accepted me and that lived with me, that cared for me, that cooked with me, that just looked out after me. And it was a really wonderful couple years. I look back on it really fondly. There's some tough times to it, absolutely. There were some great times to it, and had a really meaningful impact on me and my life.
It sounds like a great thing.
It is a great thing. It's a great program. It's a great project. It's a great initiative. I'm proud of the fact that it was actually my great uncle, President Kennedy, that had the idea for the Peace Corps and started it up back in the early 1960s. And so it's been going strong now for 50 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's a long time. But there's thousands of volunteers that serve their country in some of the poorest parts of the world, all over the world. And it's, I think, made a good impact on a lot of people.
It did.
Oh, thank you.
Have you always known you wanted to be in politics?
No. No, I didn't. Look, I grew up around politics. My dad was actually a congressman himself for a little while. When I was growing up, he ran for office when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and then he stayed in office through when I was in high school. So I'd grown up around it, other family members that were in politics as well, so I was interested in it. But I went off to college. I studied management science and engineering. So it was an engineering area or discipline, and I got really interested in economic development. I worked at the UN, and then I was at the Peace Corps, and when I came back from the Peace Corps, I went to law school because of some of the experiences I had in the Peace Corps that got me really interested about the law and how the law works.
So you wanted to be a lawyer?
I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to learn how you could leverage the law to do more economic development work. So when I came back from law school, or when I came back from the Peace Corps, I still was very interested in doing more economic development work. I worked in Southeast Asia for a couple of months there during one of my summers in law school, and was committed to trying to find ways that you could leverage the law and economic development programs to try to help people. Through a series of different experiences, when I was in law school, I ended up working at a legal aid program trying to help folks that, with the assistance of a supervisor, folks that were too poor to afford a lawyer in some of the cases that they were confronting. And that got me into the court system, which I actually really liked. I took an internship at a prosecutor's office for one summer, and I loved that, and that got me into a job in law enforcement, and I had a really good time in that job. I loved that job. Some of the most dedicated public servants I've ever worked with have been my colleagues and the other prosecutors and police officers. I also recognized that there was an awful lot of work that you confront on a daily basis, and not a whole lot of time to do it, and that you'd walk in and there'd be a stack of files on my desk about that big, and you'd work through them, and then you'd come back in at the end of the day and there'd be another stack that high. And part of what I was trying to do, my goal, and what my supervisor said, was to try to make sure that the file that you were working on, the person whose life was in that file, that they never committed another crime. And for some folks, they're bad people that were doing bad things. For an awful lot of them, though, Shayna, there were folks that were suffering from drug abuse or mental illness, or substance abuse, or some other problem. And if you could address the underlying problem, you'd address the fact that they didn't want to commit a crime. It's just they found themselves there. And so a lot of that work, though, meant working further upstream and before they were committing crimes, so on policies about prevention and treatment and earlier intervention. And those policies are actually what policymakers are supposed to do, and that means you've got to have a hand of, I think, writing that law, and that's what lawmakers do, and that's why they're in for office.
Yes. I always finish my interviews with asking the question, what is your favorite meal and dessert?
My favorite meal is dessert. Absolutely, period. I've got like the world's worst sweet tooth. Meal, if it's not dessert, if I have to have a meal first, pizza. Love pizza. Dessert, Shayna, is probably like trying to choose between my favorite family members. So it's like a terrible, terrible question. One that I love a lot, my wife and I seem to devour, is whenever we go out out to dinner and it's on the menu, we always get it for dessert, is a molten chocolate cake with vanilla ice cream on it.
That sounds amazing.
It's amazing. I also like apple crisp. I could go on for a long time. I'm not sure you have that long for an interview, but I love dessert. I eat it all the time. I eat it for breakfast if I can.
I agree with you.
Hey, there you go. I'm not so sure your parents agree with this.
They probably won't.
But it's good.
Yes, amazing.
Shayna, thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Kennedy.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's an honor to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
A pleasure.